In this video, we're going to show you how to measure and mark to mount your L brackets on your bed. To do this job, you're going to need all four of your L brackets. You're going to need your headboard and your footboard. You will also need your pencil again for marking. You will need some tool for measuring, either once again a tape measure or your combination square. And then you may also find a block of wood handy and helpful for this job. So, the first thing I'm going to point out in this job is that your L brackets, there are actually two different types of L brackets. There are, you can see, ones that have the holes, the big holes for receiving those posts opposite each other. So you're going to have one pair for one bed and one pair for the other bed. And it's very important to use those opposite ones for each set of posts. You don't want two of the same ones on the same, either the headboard or the footboard. Okay, so I'm going to put two there and two here to make sure that I get them with the correct beds. Now, what you're going to want to do before you start doing any measuring and marking is you're going to want to take a look at both the footboard and the headboard and decide which face is going to face outward and which one is going to face inward. And what I mean by that is when it's standing up like this, you got to decide which one you want people to see and be visible on the outside and which one is going to go towards the inside of the bed. So generally you want to pick the nicer looking one for the outside and the worse looking one for the inside. Once you've decided that, put the good side, the outside one, facing down because all the mounting hardware is going to go on the inside of those posts. Okay? So I've already determined this is going to be the inside of my bed. And generally what it's going to look like when they're mounted is like this. You're going to put the plate that has the three beveled holes into the post. Those are going to get screwed into the post. And then eventually what will happen is our mounting post that's on the side rail is going to go into those holes and slide into place like that. Okay, so that's generally how that's going to be how that looks eventually. So generally, so they're going to go into place like this, and that's roughly where it's going to go. So now let's start calculating where we need to make our measurements to mount these L brackets. I'm going to tell you how to do the measuring so that you will end up with an 8-inch gap between the between the floor and the bottom of the side rail. The reason why I'm going to show you an 8-inch gap is because that's what I'm doing for my beds, and that 8-inch gap allows us to slide some tote containers underneath the bed that are the big underbeds tote containers. If there's something else that you want to be able to get under your bed and you want that gap to be bigger or smaller, you can adjust that just simply by adjusting the gap measurement that I give you. So I'm going to give you first that gap measurement of 8 inches. Okay, so you're going to take 8 inches, and it might be helpful to have a sheet of paper and a pencil ready to calculate the measurement for calculating the bottom, and then also later on calculating the measurement from the side. So we start with that 8-inch gap measurement. Then what we need to do is, because that only gets us to the bottom of the side rail, we're going to need to add on that inch that we measured from the bottom of the side rail to where that mounting hardware was, because we want the mounting hardware to meet each other. Okay, so we take 8 inches for the gap plus 1 inch for that measurement over there, so we're up to 9 inches. However, you'll remember from the first video that the L bracket and the post piece are not the same size. There's a 3/32 of an inch gap. That L bracket is 3/32 of an inch longer than the post piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to subtract 3/32 from our 9 inches. So we're actually only going to measure to 8 inches and 29/32. So once we've got that measurement of 8 inches and 29/32, you can measure from the bottom of your post to that measurement. Now, if you've only got a tape measure, what you do is you hook it on the bottom, you go to 8 inches, and then 29/32 is going to be 1/16 plus 1/2 of a 16th. Most tape measures only have 16th-inch increments. So what you'll do is you can go up to the 9, and then we got to take away 1/16, which is 2/32, and then one more 30 seconds. So you'll actually make your mark in the gap between those two 16th-inch marks there. And that's how you can make that mark using your tape measure. Now, if you actually have a combination square like I do, that goes down to 32nds of an inch, what you can do is you can put this at one of the inch marks, just level it off at an inch. So you just put the inch hash right where the blade of the square part is. And then what that allows you to do is you can put that on the bottom of the post and you just come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches. Then we come up 29 30-seconds, which is going to be 3 30-seconds shy of that 9th inch. So 1 30-second, 2 30-seconds, 3 30-seconds. So I take my pencil and I make a mark at 3 30-seconds of an inch. And of course, since we're dealing with such small measurements when you're dealing with 30-seconds of an inch, you gotta be real careful when you measure it. Now, what you can do is you can go and take that 8 and 29 30-seconds measurement, and you can do that on all the bottoms of all 4 of the posts at once, so that you don't have to reset this and have any kind of error come in because you've adjusted the blade on your square. So you can go and you can do that now if you want. You can pause the video. So once we've got our mark there for the bottom of this L bracket, now we have to make the measurement, we have to figure out the measurement for how far in from the edge that L bracket has to get mounted. Because if you imagine that this piece of wood is our side rail, and here's that post piece that gets mounted to our side rail, what's going to happen is, if we would mount that L bracket all the way out to the end, and you slide it in, you see that it's going to hang out there. So we hang way over the edge of the bed. We don't want that. So we have to bring it in. Now, to get the right measurement, because you're not going to be able to take that whole side rail and hold it in place there and mark it and all that kind of stuff, what we need to do is we need to get a measurement for how thick all this is. So you'll take your tape measure and you'll measure the thickness of your side rail. And my side rail is 3/4 of an inch plus a 1/16. Hopefully your side rails are that same thickness so that you don't have to worry too much about any kind of variation. So I'm going to operate with 3/4 of an inch plus a 1/16 for the thickness of the side rail. In addition to that, you're going to have to measure the thickness of the metal plate from your side post, because remember, that also is going to have to be accounted for when you're attaching it so you don't have any overhang. So what you'll do is you'll take your tape measure and you'll measure the thickness of that metal, and it's going to come out to about, once again, 3 30-seconds of an inch. So it's about 3 30-seconds of an inch, which is 1/16 plus a 32nd. So we take our 3/4 plus a 1/16, add on another 1/16 from this, so we're at 7/8 plus a 32nd. Now, you can't just simply mark, though, at 7/8 plus a 32nd, because we rounded the corner of the post. And so we want to account for that so that the rounding, once we put our side rail in place, that rounding is going to be what's visible, and you're not going to have any kind of a gap, like if you would mount the side rail all the way out to the edge, you'd have a gap there that's something to get caught on. We don't want that. We want that rounding to be nice and proud so that it is going to be a nice smooth joint seam there. So we have to add 1/8 of an inch onto our 7/8 plus a 32nd. So we're actually going to be at 1 full inch plus a 32nd is how far this bracket is going to have to come in from the edge of the post. So once again, 2 ways to do that. You can either take your tape measure and you can measure 1 inch, and then a 32nd would be kind of right between the inch mark and the 1/16 inch mark on your tape measure that's right next to it. Or you can use your combination square, which if it's got those 32nd of an inch measurements, it's going to make it really easy for you to get your 1/32nd of an inch. So what you'll do is you find your bottom mark for your L bracket, and you're going to want to come and put your square blade a little bit above that, and you'll measure in 1 inch plus a 32nd. and you'll put your mark for that right in here. And then, to make sure that you've got a nice square mounting, because you don't want to mount this at an angle, you want to be able to mount it straight up and down, is you're going to make a second mark about, an inch to an inch and a half above your first mark. And once again, you'll come in 1 inch plus a 32nd of an inch. And that is going to be, those 2 marks are going to help you to mount your L bracket in the right place. Now that you've got your markings there, you'll need your L bracket. Remember, the big holes are going to go up, and you want the 3 beveled holes to be what goes into the post. Now, it's probably going to be easiest to line this up if you take your block of wood and you bisect those 2 marks that are 1 inch and a 32nd from the edge of the post. So bisect them with your block of wood, cut them in half, so half is covered up by the block of wood and half is visible. Then what you'll do is you'll take your L bracket and you can just push it up against that piece of wood, because that L bracket has a curve on the bottom, and so if you try to measure using that curve, it's really, really difficult. I've tried doing that before, and you really have to work with your eye to try to get accurate with it. This is a much, much easier way to do it. Just bisect it with your piece of wood, put it against there, and boom, you've got it lined up perfectly. Then what you do is you just simply bring that L bracket down until you're bisecting the mark that was 8 inches and 29/32 of an inch from the bottom. Once you're in place, you can move your block out of the way. You can take your pencil and you can once again darken in all 3 of those beveled holes that you've got in your piece of wood. And there you go. You are now all marked for that L bracket. Repeat that exact same process on all of the other posts, and you'll have all of your L brackets marked.